with your ass right now. The white man is the Edomite, right? All right. You said you hate the white man, right? You hate him. You hate him.
Absolutely.
But don't it tells you in your Bible that don't hate the white man, for he is your brother. I don't want to go there because I already know you're going to switch it up. You're going to add something to it. I'm not
going to switch it up.
According to your Bible, what does the scripture say? What does it say, brother? Ye should not hate an Edomite, for he is thou brother, for he is your brother.
This is why I just wanted to call and talk to Unc about the little vaccine thing, because I never want to get on here and get on this fake soapbox.
No.
No. I'm not taking away. I did say that I hate him.
Okay.
Deuteronomy 23:7. Can I answer the question?
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Deuteronomy 23:7 says, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite. Abhor and hate are two different words. Let me use the Bible to answer. When you go to Psalms 119 and 163, it says, I hate and abhor lying. So now you have the same hate and the same abhor in the same scripture, two different contexts. So you can't bring up abhor because I never said abhor.
So when it says thou should not abhor the Edomite, what are they saying?
You shouldn't do no unjust harm to him. Like,
so that's what it's saying. Come on, Captain.
I'm trying to. You don't want to hear that right there.
All right, Shalom. This is Harawan by Nyasha Allah of the Lions Den Camp. I want to say Kal Halayim La Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai by Hashem Harakak Wadash Ma'amad. Double honor to the elder apostles of GMS and the elders. Shalom to you, Akim and Akwatim and children that believe in sincerity and truth around the four corners of the earth. What you heard there was Captain Tazaryach, a member of the ISUPK, going off on scripture. All right, bringing in damnable heresies into this truth. Now, the scripture in Deuteronomy 23:7. First of all, you have to understand this was 40 years after we had been in the wilderness, according to Deuteronomy chapter 1. And Moses was giving us the commands and the orders of what the Most High was commanding us to do once we get settled in those lands, and how to delegate the inheritances amongst Israel, and also the scattered of Israel that was still making their way back into this land called Canaan, but eventually called Jerusalem, Israel. All right, so now it says this: thou shalt not abhor an Edomite. All right, so that Edomite, where he said abhor. Now, all right, you see here where it says Edom or Edomite, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite. That's what he was focused on. He was focused on the word abhor, using that in the debate with him and Sinetta or whoever he was debating. And, that's not the focus of this verse, to abhor or hate. It's telling you not to hate your own brothers that's scattered amongst the Syrians, okay, the Aramaeans. Now, you can be a natural-born Aramaean or Syrian, or you can be a person living in that land, okay? Just like you could be a natural-born Egyptian or an Israelite living in the land of Egypt. They would still call you an Egyptian because of your land location. Now, this shows that their leadership is not teaching them correctly. Right here where it says, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, that word is not supposed to be there. All right, it's a clerical error. Now, if we click on H726, all right, which means Hebrew 130 for the catalog of where it's at in the Strong's Concordance, it says translation Adamya, right? Adamya, which means red, or basically Edom, okay? Now, if you go here, it says Adawamya, which means red. An Edomite or descendants from or inhabitants of Edom. Okay, so you have people that lived in Edom as well that might not be Edomites. But right here it says what? Patronymic from H726 C H726. Okay, so let's get it. So right here it says what? The word that's supposed to be there in Deuteronomy 23:7, where it says, "Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite," is really supposed to say, "Thou shalt not abhor a Syrian or an Aramaean." Okay, Arawamya. All right, Arawamya, and that's basically what? A Syrian. It says a clerical error for Adamya, H130. See that? So if we click here, it says Arawamya, a clerical error for H130 and Edomite, as in the margin, Syrian. Okay, so it's supposed to be a Syrian there. Now, KJV translate H726 in the following manner: Syrian. Okay, so it's not supposed to say Edomite there, it's supposed to say Syrian. All right, so let's go back to it and read it correctly. Where was I? I'm gonna go back to Deuteronomy 23:7, and it says this: "Thou shalt not abhor an Aramaean, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou wast a stranger in his land." So now let's get this word for, actually, you know what? I'm going to prove this fact first. Let's get this real quick. All right, this is Deuteronomy 26:5. "And thou shalt speak and say before Yahweh thy power, a Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down into Egypt and sojourned there with a few, and became there a nation, great, mighty, and populous." All right, I forgot Egypt was there, but that even shows more that our people were scattered into Egypt, because this is speaking about our forefather Jacob. All right, he was that Syrian ready to perish. Okay, so that's our forefather. And that word Syrian, all right, now it's speaking about Jacob being that Syrian. Okay, he went down into Egypt after Joseph was there. Okay, so, and it said he was ready to perish. And how was he ready to perish? Because he was suffering the oppression from Esau. All right, his brother Esau was hunting him down. Okay, so what happened was Jacob was sent to the land of Haran, or Padan Aram, to flee from his brother Esau. So Isaac sent him there. All right, and he told him to find a wife there instead of going in the way of Canaan to the south. Isaac sent them to the north. All right, Esau went to the south and got a bunch of Canaanites to wife and followed their customs. But after the promise and the request or command from Abraham for our people not to deal with the Canaanites at that time, because they would cause our children to follow their false gods and adultery, or idolatry and wickedness. All right, so he said, don't take no wives of the Canaanites. But Esau did that, you know. And now Jacob was sent to the north of Mesopotamia into the land of Haran, or Padan Aram, where he met Rebecca. And Rebecca was known as a Syrian as well. Okay, Padan Aram. Now this word Syrian right here is speaking about Jacob, which his name was changed to Israel. Okay, so before that we would call what? Sons of God. Now, and later called Israelites, which means what? Princes of God, which means basically sons, okay? So that word there is what? Aramaean, all right, Aramya, a thing or a person from Syria or Aram. See that? So that's what this was. Speaking about Jacob being that Syrian, and this would explain a little bit why the Lord told Moses to tell our people not to hate or abhor with disgust the Syrians that were basically scattered there, man. The Lord said, that's our brothers. Those are people. All right. And that's the same thing he told Peter in the book of Acts. I might get it. But he told Peter to accept Cornelius. All right, that was our brother. All right, this is Genesis 11 and 26. And Terah, which Terah was the father of Abraham, and Terah lived 70 years and begat Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. All right, so Haran was one of the brothers of Abraham, whom this land was named after when they got there. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begat Lot. All right, that's how Lot was the nephew of Abraham. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity. And that's why when they got to this land over in Padan Aram, they named it after Haran, okay? In the north of Padan Aram in Syria. The father of Milcah and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren. She had no child, and Terah took Abraham his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, Sarah, his daughter-in-law, his son, Abraham's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees, that's in the south of Mesopotamia, today called Iraq. All right, actually, before called Babylon as well. So they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees, because that's where they were at, to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Okay, so let me show you on the map. All right, so this was the path of Abraham from Ur of the Chaldees in the south of Mesopotamia, of the Chaldeans, right, called Babylon. He went up to Haran. They were trying to make their way to Canaan. Okay, what you call Bethel, Beersheba, Shechem. And there was a lot of it was basically a lot of Hamites in that land still. So they went up to Haran and dwelt there, okay, and populated that area. So we had a bunch of people of our tribes, all right, living in that area called Syria. So that's why the Lord said, what? Don't abhor in a Syrian, okay, an Aramaean, because those are our brothers. All right. It says Haran, or Haran, which means mountaineer, which is the brother of Abraham, okay, the father of Lot. It says the city to which Abraham migrated when he left Ur of the Chaldees, basically the capital of the Chaldees in the south, and where he stayed until his father died before leaving for the promised land, located in Mesopotamia, in Padan Aram, at the foot of Mount Messias, between the Abhor and the Euphrates. All right, so this is where Abraham moved to, Padan Aram. Aram means what? Aramaean, the Syrians. All right. Now it says this. Genesis 25:19. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Okay, it goes from Abraham, Isaac to Jacob. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife. All right, so Isaac being the son of Abraham. And he took Rebekah because he was up in that land. Okay, now the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian. All right, Rebekah was a Syrian, but she was our people. All right, only because she lived in that land. The daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padan Aram, the sister to Laban, the Syrian. All right, Laban's what? Today would be called the Israelite, but at that time he was called the son of God, sons of God. All right, so let's get a couple of these words real quick. Syrian, we know that one. Aramaean, okay. And it says what? Padan Aram. Let's get that. It says field, a plain or tableland in northern Mesopotamia, in Aram, a region of Syria. Okay. So that's where Laban was living. That's where basically the brother of Rebekah. All right. And that's also where Isaac went to find his wife Rebekah, because following the orders that Abraham put out not to go amongst the Canaanites and find a wife. So he told him to go up to Haran. All right, this is Genesis 24:1. And Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Lord Yahweh had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said unto his eldest son, servant of his house, that ruled over all that he had, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and I will make thee swear by Yahweh, the power of heaven, the God of the earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. See that? But thou shalt go unto my country and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac. And where was that? That's where Isaac met Rebekah, in Padan Aram in Syria. Okay, because she was known as a Syrian, and Laban, her brother, was known as a Syrian as well, because they were living in that land. So he said, what? But thou shalt go into my country and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac. All right, so that's when it sent that servant out to find Rebekah. You know, and the woman was sent out, Rebekah, to meet the guy. He put the bracelets upon her wrist, because at that time the law was that you had to give the father some silver to take his wife. All right, so I'm trying to stick to the point real quick. This is all right, so now let's deal with Isaac telling Jacob to flee to that same land. Okay, he told Jacob that, hey, when you running from your brother Esau, flee to this land. Go to Haran or Padan Aram, because we have people there, and you can find your wife there. You know, get settled in there. And that's what happened. All right, so Genesis 28:1. This is Genesis 28:1. And Isaac called Jacob. So you had Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay. Now, then out of them, you get Moses from the tribe of Levi. And then you get Deuteronomy 23:7, when we were brought up out of Egypt. Okay. And the Lord created us into an actual nation, gave us laws, statutes, and commandments. And this happened around 1470 BC. Now, Genesis 28, and 1. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. So this was passed on from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. And he told him not to take a wife from amongst the Canaanites, because they would cause our children to be brought up in idolatry. All right. Arise, go to Padan Aram. See that? He told Jacob to do the same thing. Go to Padan Aram. Because why? Because those are our brothers. Those are people, our kindred. All right. Padan Aram, which means what? Aramaeans, the Syrians. So you had the natural born Aramaeans, and then you had the people from Arphaxad that were living in that land, basically from Abraham. All right. Okay, so now arise, go to Padan Aram, so amongst the Aramaeans, where our people dwelt, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife, so like distant cousins, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. All right. So now, and Yahweh Almighty bless thee. That's the same thing that happened with, if you can understand that, you'll be able to understand Adam and Eve, how he got the rib. Okay. It says, I'm going to read that again. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father. Okay. And take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. They're like distant cousins. And Yahweh Almighty bless thee and make thee fruitful and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people. So we became a multitude of people. All right. And give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee and to thy seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which Yahweh gave unto Abraham. And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Padan Aram. All right. Basically, Syria, unto Laban, son of Bethuel, the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. Okay. And when Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram, to Syria, to take him a wife from thence, and that as he blessed him, he gave him a charge, saying, thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. So Jacob obeyed Isaac, and Esau disobeyed him. All right. He married wives from the daughters of Ishmael and Canaanites. Okay. So this is the point where Isaac also sent Jacob, his son, to that same area, Padan Aram. All right, there amongst the Syrians. Okay, you have the natural born Syrians, and you have the Syrian area, God's people today would be called Israelites, that's living in that land called Syria, Padan Aram. All right, I'm not going to read this whole story, but I'm going to try to, jump to the points. This is Genesis 29:1. Then Jacob went on his journey. Okay. He proceeded on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it, for out of that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. Okay, so this is where he's going to meet his wife. And it says, verse 4, and Jacob said unto them, my brethren, my brethren, okay, my brethren, whence be ye? And they said, of Haran are we. So what? We have brothers in that land. And he said unto them, know ye Laban, the son of Nahor? That's Laban the Syrian, which was the the son of Nahor, okay, the brother of Rebekah. And they said, we know him. And he said unto them, is he well? And they said, he is well. And behold, Rachel, his daughter. Okay, so now Rachel, Laban's daughter, his daughter cometh with the sheep. Okay, so this is when Jacob married Rachel, and he served Laban 7 years. So he lived there 7 years. Okay, and you know, so that was our people over there. Now here you go, Genesis 29 and 13. 12. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother, and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. Okay. And it came basically saying they was related, you know. And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. Okay, and he abode with him the space of a month. All right, like I said, you had natural born Aramaeans or Syrians, and then you had sort of like what was the name? Rezin. Okay, in the second book of Kings, chapter 16. All right, the Lord sent Rezin, the Syrian prince of Syria, against our people, and he was a natural Aramaean. So he would be of this bloodline that goes back to Aram. But we come through, Abraham came through Arphaxad, all right? But they're all Shemitic. You see that? But you got Esau today, they want to call themselves the only one that's Shemitic, you know? But we all are Shemitic. So right here it says this in Genesis 10 and 22. The children of Shem, Elam, Asher, all right, the Elamites, the Persians, the dot-head Indians, you know, and Asher, the Assyrians that went up against Hezekiah, people like Sennacherib and Tiglath-Pileser. It says, and Arphaxad, see, that's what we come through, and Esau. It says, and Lud and Aram. All right, so you had the natural born Aramaeans, but you had our people that came through Arphaxad that were living in that land called Aram. I'm going to read this. And the children of Aram, Uz, verse 23, and the children of Aram, all right, Aram, let me click that real quick. H728, it says Aram or Aramaeans, exalted, right? Aram, a Syriath nation, a Syrian or Aramaean people. All right, so those are actual people. And the children of Aram, Uz and Hol and Gether and Mash, and Arphaxad beget Salah, and Salah beget Eber. That's where you get the word Ibaria or Hebrew from. Okay. It says the region beyond. So that's when everybody was speaking their language, and their lands were named according to their native tongue of Hebrew. Everybody spoke Hebrew. You had Canaanitic Hebrew. You had the Proto-Hebrew, which we spoke the correct way at the Eber and Abraham. You had Sumerian version of Hebrew, which later became what you would call Aramaean or Aramaic, all right, the Syriac Hebrew, after the orders of Tiglath-Pileser in the 8th century. He called it, they went from calling it what was it called? Sumerian, and they called it Aramaic, paying homage to Aram. All right, that was done by the orders of Tiglath-Pileser. He was a Syrian, okay, paying homage to their forefather Aram. So they named that language Aramaic, and they called our Hebrew Paleo-Hebrew, meaning ancient. At that time, it was ancient, okay, in the 8th century. But before that, it was called Proto-Hebrew, or the first Hebrew. So now, that's when you get Eber, right? Verse 25, and unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg. So we come to Peleg. For in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. And Joktan begat Almadad and Shalep and Hazar Maveth and Jerah. And I'm going to skip all these names. Verse 30. And their dwelling was from Misha, as thou goest unto Sephar, a mount of the east. These are the sons of Shem after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, in their nations. And by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. So that's where we all come from, right? From those forefathers right there after the flood. Now, they were divided in their lands after their names. That's why that land is called Syria or Aram. All right, Padan Aram or Aram. But you had our people from Arphaxad and Eber and Peleg that were living in that land. Okay. All right, I'm going to get this scripture again. It should make more sense now. Deuteronomy 26:5. And thou shalt speak and say before Yahweh thy power, a Syrian ready to perish was my father. And speaking about Jacob when he was fleeing from Esau, all right, he was ready to perish. So his dad Isaac sent him to Padan Aram, and there he found a wife and food and residency living amongst Laban, his was called his uncle, all right, distant uncle. So they stayed there 7 years. A Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down into Egypt and sojourned there with a few, and became there a nation, great, mighty, and populous. All right. All right. And it said what? He went down into Egypt. That's how you know it's talking about Jacob. All right. This Syrian that it was speaking about that went down into Egypt. Now on the way, he met an angel along the way. His name was changed from Jacob to Israel. Okay, when he was trying to go back to his father Isaac. Genesis 46:1. And Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba. All right, and this is later. This is after his name was changed to Israel, and he got his wives and everything, and they were going down into Beersheba, which is south of Jerusalem, and offered sacrifices unto Yahweh of the God of his father Isaac. And Yahweh spake unto Israel, or Jacob, in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am God, the power or God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt. See that? That goes hand in hand with that scripture I just read in Deuteronomy, where it said he went down into Egypt, this Syrian. For I will there make of thee a great nation, and will go down with thee into Egypt. Okay? And I will also surely bring thee up again, and Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. And that was his son Joseph. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, and their little ones, and their wives in the wagons with which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. And they took their cattle and their goods, which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought he with him into Egypt. And these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt, Jacob and his sons, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. So, all right, Deuteronomy 26. And thou, Deuteronomy 26 and 5. And thou shalt speak and say before Yahweh thy power, a Syrian, all right, an Aramaean, but he was basically, you would call him an Israelite, all right, a son of God that was living in that land called Syria. It says, ready to perish was my father, see, after being oppressed by Esau. And he went down into Egypt, see that? And sojourned there with a few, and became a great nation, great, mighty, and populous. All right, so that's talking about our people. All right, Genesis 46 and 15. These be the sons of Leah, one of Jacob's other wives, which she bare unto him, unto Jacob, in Padan Aram, with his daughter Dinah. All the souls of his sons and his daughters were 30 and 3. So Padan Aram is, all right, it's basically Syria. All right, so now when you see this word in Deuteronomy 23 and 7, let's go back to it. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite. Now, what was Moses telling our people? He was saying what? Let's start from the top. Deuteronomy 23 and 1. He that is wounded in the stones or hath his privy member cut off shall not enter into the congregation of Yahweh. All right. So the basically, all right. So they should not enter into the congregation. Now, check this out. It says congregation meaning assembly, company, congregation, convocation. All right. So dealing with our holy convocations and our religious customs, somebody had their privy parts cut off. They couldn't take part in those. Okay. They were looked at as unclean. And there were certain times if you had a missing arm or missing limbs, it was looked at as unclean at that time or not whole. For it's an assembly for evil counsel, war or invasion, religious purposes. So they shall not be a part of the religious customs of our people. Company of returning exiles. Okay. And when it came to our religious customs, they couldn't take part in it. All right. So that's what this was saying. All right. So Deuteronomy 23 and 1, a bastard shall not enter into the congregation of Yahweh, even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of the Lord. All right. So a fatherless child, they had to be given a place as well. They had to be brought into the laws, and that was the form of cleansing them at that time. They couldn't take part in the Passover. All right, unless they had to be circumcised, and now let's get to Deuteronomy 23 and 3. An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. Forever. Why? Because you would think that those were our people. Why? Because they came out of Lot. But they were looked at as heathens as well, the Ammonites and the Moabites. Though they were the sons of Lot, which were the sons, Lot was the son of Haran, the brother of Abraham. The Lord still said that those Ammonites and those Moabites were unclean. They were wicked. And they're not, none of those are our people. All right, even though they come from Lot. Deuteronomy 23 and 4, and they shall not enter forever, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when ye came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam the son of Beor of Pithor, Mesopotamia, to curse thee. They hired one of our own people to curse our nation. So they went up against it was like nation against nation, you know. But nevertheless, Yahweh thy power would not hearken unto Balaam, but Yahweh thy power turned the curse into a blessing unto thee, because Yahweh thy power loved thee. See that? Now, 26, thou shalt not seek their peace, nor their prosperity all thy days forever. So we're not supposed to deal with them. All right. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite. See that? So that's where we get back to that word again. Make more sense now, right? So now he's saying, thou shalt not abhor a Aramaean, for he is thy brother. All right. The other ones, Ammonites, Moabites, those are, even though they come out a lot, those are actual heathens. But the Aramaeans, where it says Edom, it's supposed to say Aramaean. Okay, let's get that again. Right here, where it says Edom, H130. Go to the Strong's info, and it says what? Patronymic from H726. It says right here,
Strong's H726. Aramaean.
all right, and our
The form just below that, Edomite.
right, so there's like two different forms, man. So it says a clerical error for Adamya. Okay. A clerical error for H130 and Edomite, as in the margin Syrian. So it's supposed to say Syrian, where it says Edomite. So thou shalt not abhor a Syrian, because he is thy brother. He come from Abraham. All right. Now, that's the same thing that the Lord told Peter. Okay. And he said this right here. Let me read this one more time. Deuteronomy 23:7. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor, or it's supposed to say this. Thou shalt not abhor an Aramaean, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou wast a stranger in his land. Right. So you think just because a brother was still living in Egypt, that you're supposed to be like, nah, the Lord ain't dealing with you. Oh, you ain't our people. But check this out. This is Leviticus. This is in the law. Okay. 19 and 33. And if a stranger, okay, a stranger, meaning one of our people, a foreigner, okay, a guest, a foreigner, sojourner, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inherited rights. So a newcomer that came out of these lands into the land, promised land, okay, that was given to us. So they were lacking inherited rights. They didn't have, some of them didn't have their parents. Some of them didn't know what tribe they were from. Okay. Of foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights. All right. So you had to make sure they had rights coming back to Israel, being amongst our people. But the stranger, which would be Gar, all right, Gar, all right, that dwelleth with you, Salaki, and if a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, you shall not vex him. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you. All right, that's the only difference. They weren't born among our people. They were born amongst the Egyptians, like we were born amongst the Americans, or wherever you're at in the world today. But the same thing that the Lord told Peter dealing with Cornelius. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you. And that's what the Lord was telling Moses to tell our people. The Syrian that comes among us or is born among us, thou shalt love him as thyself, right? Because that's our brother. All right, just like the Egyptians, the Israelites that were living in Egypt, that were still coming back from exile or from that place. It says, thou shalt love him as thyself, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Okay? So we were strangers in that land. So the Lord's saying, hey, we're going to be scattered amongst these people. And we got to understand that, you know, that our people were destroyed for lack of knowledge. All right. Now, Acts chapter 10 and 9. On the morrow, the scriptures say the Lord, he changed not. All right. Even during those times when he was talking to Moses, he was talking the same thing to Peter. Acts 10 and 9. On the morrow, as they went on their journey, they drew nigh unto the city. Peter went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. And he became very hungry and would have eaten, but while they were made ready, he fell into a trance. All right, he was getting visions and saw heaven open and a certain vessel descending upon him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the four corners and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts and creeping things and fowls of the air. And there came out a voice to him, rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, no, not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the second time, what Yahweh have cleansed, that call not thou common. This was done thrice, and the vessel was received up again into heaven. Now while Peter doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean, behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius had made inquiry of Simon's house and stood before the gate. This is Acts 10 and 26. But Peter took him up. Stand up, I myself also am a man. So it's 25. And as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. But Peter took him up, saying, stand up, I myself also am a man. And as he talked with him, he went in and found many that were come together. And he said unto them, ye know how that is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But Yahweh hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Okay, so he was telling them the same thing that he was telling Moses in Deuteronomy 23 and 7. Deuteronomy 23 and 7. Thou shalt not abhor and eat an Aramaean, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou wast a stranger in his, it's supposed to say in the land. The children that are begotten of them shall enter into the congregation of the Lord in their third generation. All right. So that's why the scriptures say this, man. 2 Timothy 2 and 15. Study to show thyself approved unto Yahweh, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness. And that's what Tazaryach is speaking. Vain babblings. And that's what Sinega, or whatever they call them, they're all into vain babblings, man. Profane and vain babblings. This is 2 Peter 2 and 1. But there were false prophets among the people. And Tazaryach is a false prophet. All right. And most of the members of ISUPK, they're all false, man. False prophets, man. Even as there shall be false teachers among you. So he's a false teacher, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that bought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. So by denying the truth, the spirit of truth, you're still denying the Lord. Okay. So, and many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. And that's why ISUPK, Tazaryach, ISUIC, they all speak evil against the truth, starting from Pastor Tahar on down. So they speak evil against the true doctrine. All right, that we're speaking out here. So with that, man, hope this was edifying. And when it says Deuteronomy 23:7, Edomite is supposed to say Aramaean, okay? Because our people were in that land called Aram. All right, so with that I'm going to say, and in Egypt. So, Shalom.